All right, now I'd like to ask you the final question of the evening. And this is also a question about Glass-Steagall. And this week has been really phenomenal in a lot of respects. Among others, we've had the entire policy committee in from all corners of the country in the Washington, D.C. area and descending upon Washington, D.C. They're the elected representatives, in many cases the people who they ran against in the 2012 election campaigns. And we've also brought in, as we're having this conference this Saturday, there are a number of people who have come in from across the country to take part in this conference, as well as getting the opportunity to organize in Washington, D.C. And in virtually every case of this type of organizing, you have our representatives are in a sense super constituents, because, for example, with the former candidates, LaRouche Democratic candidates, these are people who are representing the tens of thousands of voters who put these candidates' names on the ballot, who viewed their future as tied up in the success of the LaRouche Democratic slate. And so while this is happening with our former candidates and also the super constituents from other parts of the country, we have the decision by the House on Thursday to adjourn. They've decided to go home despite the threats of bank runs and all sorts of calamities. And it was interesting because recently PBS published a documentary going through the onset of the financial crisis, beginning with the repeal of Glass-Steagall. And one interesting fact that they dug up was that in the election year leading into the repeal of Glass-Steagall, the finance, insurance, and real estate sector, the financial services sector, kicked in $350 million in contributions and lobbying efforts to members of Congress, targeting these members of Congress to go ahead and repeal Glass-Steagall. Now, on the LaRouche PAC website, we did people the courtesy of breaking that down. Per capita, with 435 members of the House of Representatives and 100 members of the Senate, Wall Street shelled out an average of $654,205.61 on each member of Congress in this effort to repeal Glass-Steagall. And it was also interesting because Sandy Weil was the strongest proponent, the former CEO of Citigroup, and the man who really got the repeal of Glass-Steagall formerly had a placard on his wall that said "the Shatterer of Glass-Steagall." He had put in a call to then Treasury Secretary Bob Rubin at the time, announcing that he had some real big news, and Rubin went on to ask him, "What? That you bought the government?" But to bring things up to date, I'll just remind people that in late July of this year, it was Sandy Weil himself who came out publicly in strong support of the reinstatement of Glass-Steagall, of separating the commercial from investment banks, and I just wanted to give a little bit of an illustration here, because $350 million spent on both houses of Congress back at the end of the 1990s. According to recent statistics, in the 2012 election, the financial services sector contributed in the House of Representatives a total of $104,938,698 to both Democrats and Republicans in the House of Representatives. So $104 million and $42 million to in total to the Senate. So my question to you, given these figures, what is a congressman actually worth? What is the value of a member of Congress?
Well, I would say that if that's your term, then they are prostitutes. If they are not of that persuasion, then they probably have a different kind of destiny or intention in mind. Now, the fact of the matter is that the problem we have is our people, our citizens, and their children. Since the assassination of the two Kennedy brothers, the United States has been declining in any measure of real terms per capita, constantly all the way through. There's been no exception. And what we have now is a system which has no sense of what value is. As a system, you have people in the system who have senses of value. You have some people who are productive, they're creative, and so forth. They're employed. Some of them are officially employed in some useful capacity, notable capacity. But in general, our people are cowards. They don't have a sense of their own value. To them, value is money value. They don't think of themselves as producing something, as being useful to the society, as adding something, contributing something to society. The productivity of the American citizen per capita has been collapsing ever since the end of actually since the end of the Kennedy assassination. It's been declining. People are worth less in real terms per capita than they were earlier. We are vastly worse off. We are vastly less valuable per capita than ever before in our lives. We are approaching the nadir of worthlessness in our own existence. We are incapable, it appears, to mobilize themselves to correct these errors, these faults. We are looking at a people who are on the brink of adopting extermination and loving it, because that's what they attach themselves to. Anyone who believes in quantitative easing is clinically insane, formally, and probably should be put into some place for the criminally or otherwise insane, where they are given custody and taken care of, and their own voice and judgment is no longer inquired for, because they're not worth anything. They don't produce anything, for the most part. They don't have the ideas, the skills, or the determination which would make them useful. They're simply squatting there, protesting against the state condition of existence, a condition which they insist on imposing upon themselves. You have young people, late teenage. They will never want to do work, useful work. No intention to do so. And they were angry at you because you didn't make them do something that made them useful. So what we've done is we've caused a moral depravity among our own citizens. And the depravity rate has increased with the succession of generations. You've come to a point that the only thing that's going to save this nation and other nations is the realization that what we have believed in the main, among most of our people, was clinically insane and criminal, probably. and therefore they would desire to change their ways. And the time has come, they will either change their ways or they will become extinct and drag the rest of them with us. And that's where we are. This is a hopeless situation if you accept the conditions which people consider normal and reasonable. But they say, we voted on it. What if they voted for it was insane? And obviously insane, provably insane. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing in the majority, the idea of entertainment is an example of this. All aspects of life are filled with absolutely worse than useless features. People spend their lives on useless, counterproductive things. They are people who have lost the quality of ability to survive. And they want you to finance their enjoyment of that still. No, that's how we got into this mess, because we allowed ourselves to be bought. We allowed ourselves to be bought by the desire for people to admire us for being like them. You'd be popular. You're a useless person, but in your crowd, you're popular. It's the case of the pursuit of the inedible by the inedible.
And that brings a conclusion to our webcast for tonight. Thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Leandra. And thank you for watching. Good night.